Thank you all for joining the webinar today with Scality and SME Storage Made Easy on bridging the gap between modern storage technologies and legacy user workflows. Before we begin, I want you to know this webinar will be recorded, and you should get an email with a direct link to the recording within 48 hours. The slides will be also shared after the webinar, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box or questions box. And we also appreciate any feedback that you have. My name is Philip Tribble. I'm a tech marketer here at Scality. I love Linux and Docker and storage. That's my background, and I love doing blogs, webinars, and evangelizing the Scality product here. I'm joined here with Doug from Storage Made Easy. He's the Director of Product Solutions. Introduce yourself, Doug.
Hey, Philip. Well, it's great to have you, this webinar going on today, and I'm excited to be here. So I'm a object storage advocate. I've done a lot with S3 and other APIs, and so today I'm really trying to help users bridge the gap, so to speak, of showing them how S3. Some people start to get worried. It's an API. What's an API versus I'm used to CLIs or GUIs. And it doesn't have to be scary at all. We can make it really convenient for everybody. So I'm excited to be able to, speak to you and continue to work with object storage.
Great.
So let me talk a little bit about Storage Made Easy for a second. So Storage Made Easy was founded in 2009. We had our first product release in 2012. And what we offer, we call a file fabric, an enterprise file fabric. And you're probably wondering, well, what's an enterprise file fabric? The elevator pitch is it's an enterprise Dropbox replacement. So today some of your users may be using home directories with SIFs and whatnot, but unfortunately they're not able to share those files. They're trying to share them via email, or they're using Shadow IT. They're putting things into Google Drive, or they're putting them into Dropbox. They're sharing them out in ways that you don't want. And so, we focus on compliance and governance. We don't have any storage backend. We connect to a number of storage backends, and we're going to give you the ability to audit all the events, to securely share files, to take control of your data in IT. And in particular, we're pairing up with companies like Scality because object storage is the new tier of storage that's going to give you the highest level of availability, the highest levels of durability for the data you put in there at the absolute lowest cost. And our users absolutely are hearing that message. We currently offer a SaaS solution that has over 5,000 businesses on it. That's for both the US and for Europe. We have 300,000 individual users. At the end of this, we invite everybody to sign up and get a free account on our SaaS service. And of course, if you're an enterprise and you're using Scality, we're going to talk to you today about installing an on-premise solution as well, if you're big enough that would matter the most to you.
Great. About Scality, we're a global company founded in 2009. We got offices all over the globe, some really nice locations. Our core product is the Scality RING, and we also have an open source S3 server that we'll get into more later. We have over 135 customers, and over 800 billion objects are managed by the Scality RING in production environments today. Our key use cases are on-prem private cloud storage, which is really the focus of today's webinar, backup and archive, content delivery networks, and storage for surveillance systems.
Yeah, well, I think we can highlight that besides just the on-prem private cloud, I'll do a couple of demos today and show you guys how you can back up and archive your user documentation and whatnot, as well as maybe not content delivery networks, but video surveillance, genomics, some of those things are going to be a good use case as well. Some of these next generation things speak directly S3, but in that regard, we can serve as a gateway between legacy apps. So I'm excited to really dive into some of these use cases.
A brief intro on the Scality RING. The RING is a software-defined storage solution that runs on commodity x86 servers running Linux. The RING can scale to hundreds of petabytes and uses advanced routing mechanisms to communicate with other components with a minimal number of hops. The Ring offers data protection mechanisms such as erasure coding and replication, and has self-healing processes to help protect against node and disk failures. Object and file access is available through our various connectors, and the Ring ships with an S3 connector that runs our open source S3 server to provide access to S3 applications. Our scale-out file system connector provides NFS and SMB access to the storage. Last year, Scality open sourced the S3 server. It's ideal for people wanting to test S3 applications without a full Ring install. You can easily run the S3 server on your laptop via Docker or by checking out the source code from Git. Feel free to try it out quickly to test Storage Made Easy products with our S3 backend. Doug has an interesting demo that you'll see later that's using our S3 server, and everything's running in different locations.
So I mean, we checked it out, we set it up. The entire demo you're seeing is of course running against real Scality software, and it is running 100% as containers. We even put a reverse proxy in front of it that we do all of our encryption certificates with. But I set it up a couple of months ago, and it has just been chugging along. We do all of our development and testing against it. So I mean, this is a great thing that you guys offer the community.
Yep, thank you. I'm very happy for this project. It's helping me professionally and personally every day.
So why don't we dive into some of the problems that I think people are experiencing out there today with using object storage. The first one that I've heard time and time again is that they understand that object storage is going to save them money, it's better, it's available, but it's not easy to get their data into the object storage. And we want to show them that, hey, that's not necessarily the case. Now, it could be the case with some of their legacy applications. So when you think about Word and Excel, they don't speak S3, and that's why it's great that Scality has that SMB SIFS layer. But again, how do you then access your data when you're not, on site? Plus, how do I protect in my data, and how do I make sure that it's available when there's an outage? So we know that there are outages, right? Amazon had a big outage a couple of weeks ago, and so I think that you're going to be able to show, how Scality can have rings in multiple locations. Well, you know what? I don't want to give away the solutions, but why don't we jump into that? Unless there are a few other problems that you can think that people are having out there, Philip.
Yeah. So yeah, people are trying to bridge the gap, and they want an object storage layer without affecting the user workflows, and powerful data protection mechanisms in place that we talked about already. Let's go ahead and dive into the solution.
Sure. So,
Scality,
yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, Scality and Storage Made Easy partnered to create a solution that will enable users across cloud and object storage environments to easily and securely store and share files from any desktop or mobile device. The solution brings enterprise file sync and share, collaboration, and cross-cloud migration capabilities to the Scality RING platform.
And so, at the end of the day, what your users are looking for is they're looking for a way to collaborate. That's why they're taking their data and they're putting it into other clouds out there. They're looking for a way to, have that GUI, have it available on their Android phone. And you, as the IT director, you're looking to make sure that you have control over the data, that you don't give up data governance. And so what a Scality and SME solution is going to look like is pretty simple. On the left, you're going to have any type of application you want. So this can be mobile apps, so it can be my tablet, my iPhone, my Android, whatever it is. You can also have desktop clients, so we have a Mac client, we have a Windows client, we have a Linux client. You can access anything through any web browser. And so we're going to give you that Web 2.0, if you will, look and feel that users are expecting today. It's going to be a single pane of glass, and that single pane of glass is going to allow them to directly use Scality. Now, obviously, I'm kind of biased. Again, I told you I'm a object storage advocate. And so I'm going to say that the Scality S3 is my favorite interface, but there's no reason that you couldn't connect it to the SIFS or NFS interface in Scality as well. But obviously, each API comes with pros and cons, for connecting to. But it's going to give your users, a seamless experience to get data in and out of Scality, or to pull data back in from the public cloud and whatnot. So if we look at some of the problems that we talked about before, one of the first problems we brought up was it's hard to get my data into this new object storage, this new type of API-driven approach. And so I'm going to say no, it's not. If you put storage made easy in front of Scality, you can migrate your data very easily. And that data can be existing CIF share. So maybe you have a filer out there and it has all of your users' home drives and data. We have a mechanism for the user themselves can migrate all of their data or any portion of their data into Scality through storage made easy. Likewise, maybe you've lost a little bit of control of your data. Maybe because you've forced them to use CIFs for so long and they want to be able to access their data on their cell phone when they're out of the office. Maybe they put some of their documents into Dropbox or they have it in Google Drive, and so you want to rein that in. So we're going to be able to give you an easy mechanism to migrate all that data from the cloud into Scality through storage made easy. And then, of course, once it's in there, to continue to use it even though we're talking about that S3 API. And then there's also the case out there, we talked about disaster recovery and protection. Maybe I have data out in the cloud that should be out in the cloud. So when you start thinking about Salesforce, you wouldn't say, well, I'm trying to pull all my data out of Salesforce, I'm trying to rein it back in. You put data in Salesforce so that it can be used. It's got reports, you can put your PDFs out there and whatnot for your sales team, but maybe you want to protect it. Maybe you want to sync it so that it's on their laptops or so that they have a copy of it. And so we're going to give you the ability to also protect the data that's out there. So again, that could be your CIF share. Maybe you're not ready to move off that filer, but you do want to put all the data on Scality. You're thinking about moving all your data into Scality. Well, we have a connector as well that can say, back up all of my data from CIFs or Evernote or Salesforce or Google Drive or Microsoft 365, and I want to put a full copy in Scality, and I want it to be an archive. And as an archive, as I'm updating my data in the CIF system, it's putting those copies into Scality, and because Scality is this massive object store that can just grow without bounds and it's very cost effective, I want to keep a full history. So every time somebody hits save on a file and they're updating that Word doc, I'm going to keep a copy of it, and that's going to help me if I ever get infected by malware or ransomware or something like that that generates some encrypted copies. Now, with the touch of a button, I can go back to some of those previous versions and just keep working. I can defeat that mechanism because I can tell you there's no malware out there today, knock on wood, that is going to be able to talk S3 API. So moving along and talking more about some of the problems we had out there, IT wants to protect their data. And when they want to protect their data, they're worried about things like losing control. Again, we talked about users putting their data in the Dropbox. That's somebody else's storage. They're sharing it out. We're going to give you governance and compliance. And what that means to us is, first of all, encryption. So we can encrypt all the user documentation and the files and whatnot coming in at the storage made easy level before it ever hits the back-end storage. And that can be whether it's Scality or CIFs or wherever it's sitting. And users can control that encryption, or you can pick for certain internal, corporate governance that you don't want to encrypt it. Instead, you can have the back end encrypt your data. When you share files out of your organization, the common way to do it is via email. And I mean, how many of us have shared data out via email, and the newest copy is a copy that's circulating in email? And that's not really the right thing to do. When you start looking at moving forward with security risk and whatnot, what you should be doing is you should be, and we've kind of got a picture of this over here, you should be sharing out your files via secured links. And so you go into Storage Made Easy and you tell it, I want to share this file out via email. It can even open up Outlook for you. And it's going to give you a link, and that link can be protected by a time that it's going to expire. It can be protected in saying that, I'm going to share out this document, but I only expect you to download it one time. And so after one time of it being downloaded, the link is going to expire. And I can password protect that link. And so that's going to give you the capability to share data through email. It's going to keep your email server from getting bloated. It's going to keep the master copy in Scality, and it's going to give you the corporate governance you need. And if you're a law firm or you're a media studio or you're working with HIPAA or life science data, all of which I know are very good for object stores, this is really important. We've got a couple of other great features that I don't want to go into, take a ton of time on, But if you need governance and compliance, you probably also need approval workflows. You need the ability, like I said before, to version files and to hold them in case somebody was to go in, a malicious user, and delete out all of their data. You need some way of holding it. You want to be able to audit, who touched it, what IP address they were pulling the data from. You want to be able to set up active monitoring being things like if somebody from, and let's just pick a country, if somebody from Nigeria tries to download a shared link, I know that we're not doing any business, hypothetically at my company in Nigeria, and so therefore I want to be alerted to that potential security risk. And then of course, you always need enterprise access control, and that's going to be your integration with things like SAML, AD, LDAP. And so that's how we're going to help you rein in and protect your data. And then lastly, and Philip, this is the one that I think we're both most excited about, is the universal translation, the object in, file out, or file in, object out nature of Storage Made Easy. And what we're trying to convey here is that if you put a Word file into Storage Made Easy and it ends up in Scality via S3, that Excel file has not been altered in any way, shape, or form. We're not proprietizing any of the data. And because we're not proprietizing any of the data, that means that in the future, you can pull it out through an S3 mechanism. Now, you probably don't have much of a reason to pull your Excel files out through S3 unless Excel starts speaking S3. But as Philip brought up earlier, I bet you're moving towards using next generation applications like video surveillance, media files, big data, life sciences, and a lot of those can speak directly to Scality via S3. And so if I'm recording from my security system via S3 directly into Scality, and then my client, my Windows desktop wants to watch that clip, if I don't have an S3 driver or a connector, how am I going to do it? Well, in Storage Made Easy, and I'll demo this later, you can easily just tell it, go out, do a refresh of what's in Scality, go pull up all those media clips, and you'll be able to watch them or serve them out, via Storage Made Easy in a native, legacy mode that's familiar for Macs and Windows machines, and vice versa. Maybe you put a report in that you want analyzed by your big data analytics, whether that's Hadoop, Spark, Cafe, something neat like that. And so you're going to put data in. You don't want it altered in any way. And so I think this is one of the coolest things, and I'm excited to demo it. What's your take on this, Philip?
Yeah, it's important that you're not locked into any solution. And S3 is pretty much the standard protocol when communicating with any object storage nowadays. And it's important to be able to access your data however you need to. And SME helps bridge the gap with legacy applications and workflows to make it easy to access S3 anywhere. So, good stuff.
I know. I mean, one of the things that I've worked on a bunch and a few times with you is some of these security cameras. Some of the next generation ones can speak S3. Some of them are speaking FTP. And so if you've got a mix between them, you can send the data in via FTP to Storage Made Easy, because Storage Made Easy, besides giving those mount points, is giving you FTP, WebDef, and a number of other file protocols. And so you can have that kind of neat mix, and yet your system is universal. You don't have to go out and replace every camera that you have with one that can speak native S3. So
yeah, it's a big cost savings right there.
But none of this works without a strong object store on the back end that can scale out. So Philip, why don't you take us through what Scality looks like and how a user would set that up?
Sounds good. As your business grows, you will need a solution that can grow with your needs and requirements. The Ring storage can be easily expanded by simply adding more physical servers to the Ring. This is the same concept for scaling out the connectors used to provide applications access via physical or virtual machines. A Scality Ring installation is not tied to a single data center or availability zone, as we like to call it. The Ring can be installed across mirrored or stretched configurations that span multiple physical sites. Mirrored or stretched rings are ideal for data availability and disaster recovery scenarios. So if you're an SME customer, you can have your data located all around the United States. And then you'll be able to access your data however you want to, complete freedom of choice. Now it's demo time.
So thank you, Philip. So let me just explain to everybody what I'm going to show, because obviously we have limited time and we want to make sure that we hit a couple of key points. So we're going to migrate some data into Scality, because when we addressed problems, we said one of the hard things is to get data into next generation object storage. And we're going to show you that that's really easy. The next thing is I'm going to show you some secure sharing collaboration. Obviously, I don't have time to go through all of the data governance, but let me just show you how to share some files securely. I want to demonstrate that file in, object out, the bimodal or universal nature of storage made easy when working with Scality. And then last but not least, what we're going to do is we're going to take a CIF share that's out there and we're going to protect it with Scality. So we're going to have all of the user data in there start being archived to a Scality system, but the user's main interface is going to continue to be that CIF share. Sound good?
Sounds great. Let me give you control of the screen.
Very good, thank you. So I don't know if you're seeing my screen. Oh, here we go. So hopefully you're seeing my screen, Philip, and you're seeing storage made easy.
Yep, I can see the nice web interface and desktop.
Great. So let me just take people through what they're seeing right now. So I'm a user. I'm logged in as user Doug in my demo environment. I've connected to some Scality storage. I have a bucket. So when we talk about S3, we talk about buckets. I have a bucket called Scality Webinar. Inside of there, I have a folder called Scality Logos, and I've put a couple of logos in there. So if I click on the logo, I can open up a little preview pane over here, and I can actually see, the individual logos. And so there's one that we did with a recent press announcement around Access that is a Scality and Storage Made Easy ISP provider. So now my admin has also given me access to a folder called Marketing, and I'll show you the admin in a minute. But the admin, currently has a CIF share set up, and they're going to share out. So they have the same concept as like if you're in Windows. I want to share the marketing folder with the marketing group. And so the marketing group can be an AD setup, a SAML, or you can build a group directly in Storage Made Easy. And so in this marketing group, I've also got a folder called logos. And this folder with logos has a couple of Storage Made Easy logos. So if I click on one of them, again, you see it in the access pane. So now the first thing I want to do is I want to pull this into my storage, my Scality bucket. And so all I need to do is click and drag, and what it's going to do is in the background, it's going to go out and it's going to copy those logos. Now let me give you a little bit of background. So I'm sitting right now at my computer in Boston, and I'm accessing the Storage Made Easy system. That Storage Made Easy system is in San Francisco. And the Storage Made Easy system has a CIFS filer local to it, but the Scality system that it's running, again, is the one that we brought up before. It's the Docker-based system, and that's actually in Arizona. So, we're really showing right now how quickly and easy it is to do everything globally. And so you can imagine that your users can be anywhere in the world, access their documents, and move them around, do data migrations and imports. So if I go to the Scality webinar folder, you can see that now I actually do have a couple, my three logos. If I go to task, I can see that all of this was completed in the background. And so for migration, that's a simple user one of they can drag single folders or multiple folders into Scality. Of course, a user or an admin could also say, I want to import absolutely everything from this CIF share into a Scality bucket. The next thing that I wanted to demonstrate is how easy it is to share out. So I now have my two logo buckets. I also have, say, this webinar. So I've got this webinar right here, and again, if I click it, even though it's a PowerPoint, it's going to generate a preview of the individual slides that you and I have already gone through. And so if I want to share this webinar out with some friends or some attendees, I can simply click the sharing button right here, and I can say that I want to share it by URL or email. And again, we're going to advocate that in the future, you shouldn't be emailing presentations. Now I know this presentation is small, it's 3 megs, but I think everybody's been there when you had a 20 meg or a 50 meg presentation and you want to email it, and email won't even accept that. Or if your email will send it out, maybe the recipient's email won't be able to accept it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a secure URL. I'm going to say that this expires in 1 day. I'm going to limit it to the first 3 people that download it. And I don't really need to set a password, but if I wanted to, I could set a password on it. And then I'm just going to click generate a new link. And so I've got a link right here, and you can see that it's got 3 times remaining that it could be downloaded. And if I copy that and I paste it into a new window, obviously somebody's going to be able to download it. And if you want a short URL, we can generate those as well, so that you get something like this, a tiny URL. Obviously, if you generate a long one, it's going to use the FQDN of the storage that you've set up. So sharing your files is as simple as that, and it doesn't matter whether your file is in CIFS. I could have done the exact same thing for one of these Scality logos that I pulled, obviously right from the press releases that Scality has. But if we want to share this one, and I generate a link that can be used one time, I can open up another window here, paste it, and download that link right there. The next thing that I want to demo for everybody is the ability to put file in and get object out, or vice versa. So, as you've seen, I've already put a bunch of files in through Storage Made Easy. And so now what I'm going to use is a free tool out there called CyberDuck. And so I already have it connected to my Scality storage. Now, CyberDuck is a free tool. There are other free tools out there. There's many tools that can speak native S3. And so whether this is your web camera or just another tool that speaks S3, I have it connected to the same Scality storage that the Storage Made Easy is in. And so first of all, I haven't done a refresh on it, so you can see that I only have Scality logos because during this we copied over the logo. So to prove to you that indeed it actually did move and make a copy in the background of all of those files, I can hit refresh, and again I can see these Storage Made Easy logos. If I double click one, it'll download. Again, it's downloading through the S3 interface, and it's as simple as that. So now what I want to do is I want to put some objects in, and I want to pull them out through the Storage Made Easy side, just to show that it goes both ways. It's completely universal. And so I always tease that the best thing about the internet is that people can share their cat photos, Philip.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of cat photos that I pulled from the internet. If we look in this folder, and I'm just going to drag this into, oops, opened up my downloads. I'm just going to pull this right into CyberDuck. Oh, if my Mac will. It's the force click pad. Okay, let's do this. Let's do, what if we do copy? You have to drag. There we go. All right, so at this point, my laptop, again in Boston, is speaking directly to the S3 in Arizona. And so I just uploaded that entire folder because luckily I have a pretty decent connection here. And so you can see that, through the S3 interface, I can see that I've got 4 new files. So now if I jump back into Storage Made Easy, of course I haven't done a refresh. I don't have that folder. So if I click back up on Scality Webinar, I can click refresh, but I've got this one called Cloud Refresh. What Cloud Refresh does is it goes out to the cloud and it looks for any new objects in that folder. And so of course I have this new folder called cats. If I go into it, I need to do a refresh there as well. Now, these refreshes can also be scheduled nightly or on a schedule. They can run every hour, where it looks for data that's been put in through a different interface. And so now I've got my cat photos. If I click on them, just again to show that it's bimodal, I can generate a preview. So there you got a little guy sitting on a keyboard, um, 3 kittens, a calico. I can share these out. I can make comments on them. I can password protect them. I can encrypt them. Obviously in your organization, you're going to do things more important than sharing cat photos. But the idea is that these could have been media files. This could be healthcare information. So you could create a share where a patient is going to upload, or another doctor's office is going to upload X-rays or something like that. If you're a media company, you certainly don't want to get into the situations that some of them have gotten into with hacks, where you want to make sure that you're sharing data out securely, that you have full audit logs, and you have alerting on those audits. And you want to make sure that you're not altering the data when it goes in or comes out. So the last thing I want to do is I'm going to protect this marketing folder. But again, I'm not the admin. I'm just a user. And so what I want to do is I want to switch and become the admin and show how easy it is for the admin to protect the CIF shares that they're sharing out. Now, as a user, I could totally map my own CIF share, and I could protect it with Scality as well. But in this environment, I simply have it set up with the admin sharing that out. So I have a separate window open, and the separate window is open right now to the admin's console. And you can see that it has the CIF share. In fact, if I go over to File Manager, you can see the CIF share, and that I actually have multiple folders. I've got one for marketing and sales, but because I'm not in the sales group, I'm not able to see that folder. But I want to protect all of that. And so I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and I'm going to add a new provider. And so I'm going to tell it that I want it to back up my CIFS files. And again, I could add multiple providers. So this could back up Dropbox. It could back up Evernote. The sky's the limit. We have a number of connectors out there. And I want to back up Scality. And so I'm going to call it, Scality backup. I'm going to put in my endpoint, which is scality.smestorage.com. Access. So what is it? It's access user, I believe. Oh, hold on.
Access key 1.
Access key. That's it. And then paste my. Whoop. I guess my password expired. There we go. Paste my password in there. And I don't want to save that. And so now we've gone out, we've connected to Scality, and I can already see that there are a number of buckets out there. In fact, the one that we've been using for this webinar right here is Scality Webinar. But what I want to do is create a new bucket. And so I'm going to create a new bucket called, SME Scality Backup. It's going to create that new bucket, and then what it's going to do is it's automatically going to start syncing all of the data on my CIF share to that backup. And then every time I put a new file in, that new file is going to be updated in the backend storage. And with that, I've really shown everything that I want to show. I think the only other thing that comes up from time to time, because I already see a question out there, is is there an interface? Do I have to use the web for everything? The answer is no. So if you're still saying, I have a Windows VM that I just opened up, I'm running Storage Made Easy Cloud Explorer, and so not only could I open up a web page and do all this, but I've got a map drive here. It shows up as my S drive, but I could have picked any drive letter. And as we can see, I have my Scality files. This is my the same thing I was seeing as a user, but native in Internet Explorer. The same thing would happen for Finder, but you can see I've got my cats, I've got my logos, and if I want to open up one of those cats, like rainbow cats, I just double-click that, and there you have a bunch of very odd-looking kittens, Philip.
Nice.
All right. Well, I don't know if that generates any questions that you can think of. I'm just looking through the questions real quick, but I think we're going to have time for that at the end. Why don't I pass the presentation back to you, and
okay.
we'll be able to wrap it up and get to a couple of these questions that have queued up for us.
Great. Let me change it to...
Can you do that, or?
Yeah, I just found it.
Perfect.
Thank you for that good demo. Let's go ahead and proceed with the presentation. So let's go over our offerings that are available through both Storage Made Easy and Scality.
So for Storage Made Easy, it's really simple. If you just want to kick the tires right now, like I was saying before, we have a SaaS service. It's hosted, in the cloud, and it's multi-tenant, and you'd be able to sign into it, and you can generate a corporate account or you can generate a free personal account. So if you generate your own free personal account, we'll give you, I think, like 5 gigs of storage. You can map it to your own Scality. You can map it to your Dropbox wherever you want. You can use it personally. Obviously, we'd like people to kick the tires and try it out, and then, if SaaS is the right model for them, again, like I said, my Scality is securely shared on the internet because, that's what S3 is made for. And so they'd be able to use our SaaS service. They'd be able to sign up a business account where we can integrate into their LDAP or their SAML. They'd be able to use their Scality service, everything like that. Obviously, SIFs would be a little bit hard because that doesn't share well over the internet. If you want to do SIFs or you want to keep everything on-prem, that's really easy too. If you contact us, we have virtual machine images. They can run in Hyper-V, VMware, KVM, if you're doing like OpenStack. And so you'd be able to spin that up. In fact, that's what I was demoing today is, the same exact software that we're running in our SaaS service, you can have on-prem. If you have it on-prem, you can keep 100% of on-prem, or you can connect to, clouds out there. So I know that Scality has announced that they're going to be able to do, I believe, backups and synchronizations and whatnot to some of the public clouds. You'd be able to tie into those. You can protect your files that way. But really, the two main options are, run it yourself on-prem or go ahead and use our SaaS service. And if you want to run it on-prem, but you want a personal edition, we've got that as well. So one-user license. Spin it up, try it yourself, keep it, run it in home, and when your company is ready to use it, we're here for you.
Great. So we have 2 products. We have the Ring, which is our enterprise product. You can experience the Ring by logging on for a free web trial. In about 10 minutes after you sign up, you should be up and running and be able to go through the installation process, test failure scenarios, and also explore how to stream media from a S3 bucket. Pretty cool. And we also have the open source S3 server. You could download it for free from Docker Hub or run it on your laptop, or check out the source code from GitHub and run it. That's at s3.scality.com. We have a joint solution sheet coming out that explains everything that we talked about today at a high level. And for more information on the Scality Ring, you can check out our object storage overview. And for Storage Made Easy information, just go to storagemadeeasy.com.
So Philip, I know you were just talking, but I see a number of questions for you already. You're ready to dive into a few questions. I'll read the first one out to you.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, so the first one is, what are the different ways to manage the Scality Ring?
Oh, that's a great question. We have 2 intuitive ways of doing this. One from the command line, ring sh, and also our web console, which you have a nice, beautiful way to explore what's going on in the ring, make configuration changes, and see what nodes contain the portion of the distributed hash table. If you log into our trial, you can go ahead and get that up and running quickly and test it out.
Perfect. Looks like the second question out there is more for me, but I think you can comment on this as well. It says, if everything goes through Storage Made Easy to get into Scality, is this going to be a bottleneck? No, that's definitely a great question. So obviously, if you have programs that can talk S3 directly, you're going to point them at Scality S3. But for accessing your documents, your Word files, your PowerPoints, everything like that, it is going to go through Storage Made Easy. Now, I did mention that Storage Made Easy is a virtual machine, but it's a complete scale-out virtual machine. So, you would start with a single virtual machine, and if you have hundreds of users, you're able to scale out the web interface, and so that web interface is stateless. You can have multiple copies of that running. The database that we use is a MySQL database, and so you can connect to any MySQL database. You could use something like Percona for active-active. That scales out as well. And then lastly, we have, and I didn't really go into this, but we have what we call deep search, which is, obviously if you've got data in SIFs, you've got data in Scality, you've got data all over the place, we give you that single pane of glass, and by default you get a search where you can find any file. If you want a more advanced search, we're able to actually, through Solr, which runs some of the number one engines out there, like Elasticsearch and whatnot, you're able to deeply mine, Word documents, Excels, PDFs. You can go, okay, I'm looking for this word in a certain document and find that. And so obviously, Lucene is also a scale-out storage engine. So everything about us is scale-out. Everything about Scality is scale-out as well. And one of the coolest features that we have as well is if you say, well, I don't want to run a bunch of your virtual machines. I have 10,000 or 100,000 users. I think you saw on my first slide that, we have some telcos that have privately, 100,000 users. And so what they can do is they actually use our system with what we call direct upload. What direct upload does is when I'm uploading a file or when I'm downloading a file, of course you go to Storage Made Easy, and Storage Made Easy says, yes, that file exists in Scality, but instead of it going through Storage Made Easy sends the end client a temp URL. Temp URL, again, this is one of those mechanisms that I really like about the S3 API, in that, if you were talking SIFs, the data has to go through Storage Made Easy. But with a temp URL, it can send that to the client, and then the client can bypass Storage Made Easy and download directly from Scality. And so it really eliminates all those bottlenecks. So kind of long answer, but multiple ways to skin that cat. And maybe if you have a second, Philip, why don't you talk about how easily Scality scales up as well?
Yeah, Scality is scales in the name, right? You can easily add commodity hardware that you have and grow your storage to your business needs as much as you want. And with the joint solution that we have, you have a scalable approach at both levels. So as your business grows, both ends are going to grow and you're going to be taken care of.
So I think let's sorry, I was talking a lot. So the next question, for small redundant implementations of Scality, what would they require? What is the infrastructure and how much infrastructure from Storage Made Easy in addition? So why don't you start with, what does a basic Scality, look like? And like I said, I've already deployed your S3 product, and that was a single server, running Docker. But why don't you go into a little bit more about the full ring?
Sure, yeah. So the S3 server is just a single Docker image. And then for the full ring deployment, that usually consists of 6 nodes or more. And then you can also add additional connector nodes or even put them on the storage nodes. It's customizable to how you want to do it.
And then for Storage Made Easy, like I was saying with the other question about bottlenecks and whatnot, the smallest implementation is just running on our SaaS service. The next thing up from that is spinning up a single VM, and then of course that VM can be scaled out. You can download dedicated VM images of the front end, or dedicated database servers, or dedicated search system. So completely scale up in that scenario as well. So the next question out there is, for shared downloaded files, can they follow by AD or define user team groups, set up a limit? It's kind of a long, it's like 5 questions in one. So maybe I'll start from the beginning. If you've set up Active Directory, then you're able to use that to define users, teams, groups. Those groups can have access into what we call shared team folders, like that marketing folder that you saw. Individual users could also be granted permission to grant sharing to other members of the team. So it's very similar to Microsoft today. So maybe not with all the depth, but with Microsoft, as an admin, you say, okay, can people read, write, delete, etc. in this folder, and what are the group or groups, and each group can have different permissions. So absolutely that can follow Active Directory. When you share a file out, you can set a download limit. The admin can say, nobody can set a limit higher than 3. You can choose not to set a limit. You can set that individually at 1 or 2 or however you like. And for the downloads, is it a first served basis? That's kind of the last question in that longer question. And the answer is yes. If for example, that share I just did that had 5 downloads, if I set it to 5, the first 5 people to download it would be able to get it. Now, you can do a little bit more protection there. The extra protection would be if you used, again, because we do complete governance and compliance, if you start setting up geo-IP filters, you can say this cannot be downloaded from anywhere outside America, or if you're in Europe, it can't be downloaded from anywhere outside of Europe, and that's going to be based on IP address. There's a question about the Scality S3 and maybe what it supports now. So, Philip, I certainly know a lot about some of the things it supports, like temp URL and versioning and whatnot. But why don't you talk a little bit about some of the key API features in Scality's S3 provider?
Sure, yeah. So S3, we have a native S3 connector that you could install however you want to on the Ring, and it supports the basic S3 API features. And we also have unique stuff that you won't find anywhere else: Active Directory, IAM, and access management built into the connector. So it's more ideal for the enterprise, so they can control their users simpler.
So there's a question out there about encryption and how can you store the key, storing it separately, where is it generated and whatnot. So from the storage made easy side, you have a lot of options. The first one is, as the admin, you can just say that, hey, everything is encrypted. You can set a key, you can set the policy that all data on all shares is encrypted. Now, that would break some of that bimodal that I demonstrated, right? So if I put a cat photo in through Storage Made Easy and I insist that everything is encrypted, you'll still see the file in CyberDuck, but when you try to open it, it's going to be encrypted. Now, of course, we do use AES 256, and we do provide a provider so that you could download that file and decrypt it yourself. Now, we have more advanced options as well. So end users, when they upload a file, can individually password protect it and encrypt a single file or files or directory. So if they're uploading their own data, they can choose that data is going to be encrypted, even if you're sending the data to something like a CIFS backend and the admin has decided not to encrypt all the files. And then when we start talking about S3 API, S3 API has providers for server-side encryption. And Phil, maybe you could talk a little bit more about encryption in Scality, but certainly a lot of backends today, like Scality, and I know you have like an article of SED drives and things like that. If you want the backend to encrypt the data and have that encrypted at rest, so that you could do something like my CyberDuck and implementation, where a user could still access it, that's available, as well as things like SSEC encryption, where the backend encrypts it with a private key, so you could only pull the data with that key. But maybe talk about how Scality encrypts data as well.
Yes, we can encrypt your data using your existing key manager. So when it hits the Ring, it'll be encrypted, and we found it's a lot more secure to use an external key manager, because some implementations may put the keys on the system, and that's not really secure if your system gets compromised. I forgot the exact encryption types that we support, but we have that.
I'm fairly certain it's AES 256 as well. I mean, that's definitely the number one out there, and your stuff's really new, so I'm fairly certain that you're up with all that. The last part of that question, because it was another question with multiple questions, was versioning support and how many versions. In Storage Made Easy, you're able to pick the number of versions as the admin that you want to keep, and whether or not users can see those versions or not. So, by default, I normally set that to like 5 versions. And with 5 versions, what you're going to see is in the web interface, a little number next to, say, that Word file. So every time you hit save in the Word file, that's a new version. And after you exceed 5, you have the option of, well, the extra versions are deleted, or you can say the extra versions go to the admin's trash can. And going to the admin's trash can, that's what we think of as legal hold, but you could just think of it as a admin on delete, so that your data is being protected, so that a rogue user that was deleting everything wouldn't be able to delete the trash can as well. Object storage is really good at replicating data and protecting your data, but one thing that object storage doesn't always cover is the ability for a rogue user to delete data, and that delete being replicated to all the different sites. And so Storage Made Easy is going to be able to protect you from that. There's certainly, there's the option to have versioning turned on but not show the end users the different versions of files, so they can't go back to a previous version, so they don't even know it's on, or just to have the trash can set up. So there's a lot of ways to actually set that up.
All right, great. Looks like that's all the questions. Huh?
Yeah, there are more definitely coming in, but I think we're running out of time. I think one of the last thing I want to mention is, certainly we're on a call here in the U.S., but Scality and Storage Made Easy are very strong in Europe as well. We're actually a UK-based company, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Scality has strong roots or started in France. Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah. So this is we have customers worldwide, and I believe you do too. So if you happen to be in Australia right now listening to this, or Japan, or wherever, don't think that this is a U.S. only solution.
All right. Well, thank you for joining Doug and doing this. Hopefully we educated the world on what we do good, and hopefully we'll get some more feedback from the community after this.
My pleasure. Great working with you as always, Philip. And if anybody has questions, certainly reach out, and I'm glad to help you on the Storage Made Easy side, or if I can help you with questions about the S3 API, or even if you want my Docker Compose script that I use for running my Scality server over in Arizona, I'm glad to offer that as well.
All right, great. Well, take care, Doug.
You too. Bye.
Thanks.